Hello everyone, welcome to my Evil Within, Akumu difficulty, no upgrade / keys walkthrough, and this is chapter 14, Ulterior Motives. So, aside from one challenging section later on, and by the way, it's not the Quell boss fight if that's what you're thinking, this chapter is very easy. You have the resources necessary to do every single section on this chapter, and the sections are really well designed, and we're going to be reintroduced to a couple of enemy types that we haven't fought in a while, and they are the Invisible Haunted, the Alter Egos, and the Traumas. The last time we fought the Invisible Haunted was back in Chapter 5, the last time we fought the Alter Egos was back in Chapter 8, and then the last time we fought the Traumas was back in Chapter 10. So the fact that all three of these enemy types are appearing on the Akumu difficulty for this chapter, this one single chapter, is pretty intriguing. And watch out right here, there are two of these wire traps in your way when you're trying to get down the escalator, and you want to always disable the one on the right, so that when you get to this spot right here, it's much easier to see where the doppelganger is, so you can take him out with a freeze bolt. And there's also an Invisible Haunted. He's directly ahead of me. If you play on Survivor difficulty, there would be a normal Haunted in his place, and pretty much the Invisible Haunted on Akumu difficulty replace all of the normal Haunted that are just lying down on the ground. And grab the bottle and then throw it at this guy's head because he will break free from that unless you do this. And he is dead. And you got to be very careful here, there is an explosive trap, and if you're not wanting to disarm it, you have to make sure that you're holding R1 as you're going through this door. Otherwise the trap will go off if you're not holding R1. And we're going to make our way over to the next section. And you need another freeze bolt for this section in order to get rid of the doppelganger. And there's also going to be a SWAT guy and a sniper guy. I tried experimenting with different ways of using noise to draw the doppelganger towards me and not waste a freeze bolt, but in the end I just decided it wasn't really worth it, because there would be times where... Oh, by the way, that was a mistake. I did not mean to craft two freeze bolts just then. For some reason my input stacked. It doesn't really matter because I have plenty of trap parts, so I just made an extra freeze bolt for myself just in case. But you got to be very careful when you're freezing the doppelganger with the freeze bolt. If he's close to the guy who's hanging off the rope, you might accidentally freeze the guy on the rope, and if he dies, the alarm will trip. So that's what I'm doing right there. I'm disabling the alarm, and then I'm burning his body. And now what I'm going to do is, with the extra freeze bolt that I made, I'm going to take out this SWAT guy. He can't see me at that range, thankfully. And there's only one guy left. And you gotta be careful of the pieces of concrete that are in the water. Each one of those pieces of concrete have Invisible Haunted. So remain crouched at all times so you don't alert them. But now I'm going to take out the sniper guy, and I actually learned from one of my failed attempts at doing the distraction strategy that you can mantle through this window over here. I assumed originally that there was glass in the way, so I couldn't possibly mantle through this and just sneak kill this guy, but this is actually the best possible spot to ambush this guy. If you try going around the side, it's a little bit harder to time when you're supposed to take this guy out, but now he is dead. And if you don't have any matches right now, if you go outside the train car and look to the bench, there are a couple of matches. And as we're moving through the train cars right now, there are going to be a couple of bear traps. There's also going to be some pistol ammo. And then there's also going to be a guy with a crossbow. And the weirdest thing about this guy is when you reach a particular threshold of this train car, he runs towards you like he knows where you are, but he can't actually climb into the train car. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit in this corner right here. I'm going to wait for him to turn around, and then I'm going to sneak kill him. It's very weird, but it's definitely better not to look a gift horse in the mouth and just exploit the situation to your advantage. If the game's giving it to you, just do it. And you've got to be very careful with this next train car coming up. There are a couple of explosive bolts, and you can actually disarm those explosive bolts and use them yourself. But you have to be very careful, because if you have at least 2 explosive bolts in your inventory, and you don't have those bolts equipped, and you try to go and disarm those explosive bolts, you will not pick them up. As I mentioned before in Chapter 4, it's a weird problem that the Agony crossbow has, where it has a lot of trouble designating whether the crossbow bolt is in your stock, or it's in your clip capacity. And the only way for this error to not show itself is if you have that bolt equipped. And speaking of the bolts right now, swap to the harpoon bolts, because there's going to be a guy that spawns when you trigger this checkpoint. He has less health than the center haunted, so he will die from the harpoon bolt every single time. And now we're about to make our way over to the next section, and this next section will feature the Alter Egos. For the rest of Chapter 14, the Alter Egos will be the replacements for the Haunted. And if you watch Chapter 8 of my walkthrough, you'll remember that the Alter Egos on Chapter 8 had a unique instant kill attack, where a parasite would burst out of their stomachs, and then the parasite would try to attack you and grab you, and it would instantly kill you every time. But on this chapter, they don't have that ability. They instead have the normal moveset that their Chapter 7 counterparts have. And that right there was a mistake. I accidentally got close to this alter ego while I was still standing, so now I'm gonna have to deal with them. And you might be thinking, why not just run past them? Well, it's just I'm a little paranoid. I know the alter ego is very slow, but just in case it somehow manages to get very close to me and it starts attacking me from behind while I'm dealing with this next alter ego, I'm just going to make sure I deal with him. That's kind of how I am when I'm trying to find consistent strategies for sections, because if I make any kind of deviation whatsoever from the sequence of actions that guarantee success, it kind of comes back to bite me in the end. And that right there, if you're wondering why the harpoon bolt didn't launch the alter ego back, it's because I aimed right around his face area, and when you aim right around that particular area of the alter egos, it never seems to launch them back. Aiming for center mass guarantees that the alter egos will be launched back. And this sequence right now, you have to go to this part of the room right here and get the alter ego to break through the vent, and then the alter ego that's to the left will always do the running attack. So I'm going to make sure I get past him, and I'm going to crouch right behind this guy and just get past them both. And then here's a moment where you can use the blind fire to move a little bit faster, and it allows you to cancel animations like this. Look at that. Completely disappeared. So it's definitely clear that you're not meant to be doing what I'm doing, but the fact that you can use blind fire to move faster in any kind of liquid that slows you down is really beneficial, and it just helps in saving time. This right here is a trap. If you accidentally trigger this trap, there will be electricity in front of you and behind you, and there will be alter egos that will spawn. And if they get electrocuted by the trap, they will shock you and you will die. So you obviously want to make sure that you don't trigger that trap on accident. And there's a freeze bolt, and here's a really clever bear trap right here. Like, can you see that bear trap right now? You have to make sure that you're crouched, that you actually see it. The only thing that really gives away the location of that bear trap is the blood particles that circle around the bear trap. Although, you might confuse it for the explosive trap though, because there is an explosive trap that I crouched past before I disarmed the bear trap. And if you don't disarm the explosive trap, then you'll most likely not be aware that there is a bear trap. So, that's pretty interesting that the developers designed it that way. And there's also another bear trap over here, and you can actually tell it's here because of the blood particles. Be careful not to launch the alter ego through the hole, because he can kind of block you off randomly. Instead, just impale him on a nearby wall, and you'll be able to get past that section very easily. But we're now making our way over to the toughest part of the Chapter 14, and it's the room that has the two traumas in it. The two traumas represent most of the difficulty with this particular section, because they are pretty good at blocking you off whenever you try to run past them. And the good thing about the traumas is that their pathfinding isn't the best. They can get stuck behind walls a lot of the times. That's the main thing that seems to happen. I mean, there is a rare possibility that they will navigate the geometry perfectly in order to get to you, but I think that possibility is nothing to really be worried about, which is why you're going to see me commit to the strategy you're going to be seeing me do. And looking back at the video right now, one thing I would definitely change is I should have sprinted the moment I got behind this particular trauma, because I thought I could pick up the fuse box and trap that first trauma within the geometry in time, but he manages to get out of it, and it puts me in a really bad position. And now that I picked up the fuse box, the walls are going to start closing in right now, and based on the positions of the traumas right now, they're in a pretty bad spot. And you're going to see me have a little bit of trouble getting past this first one, but I was just able to squeeze right past him. And that alter ego didn't catch me, thankfully. And if you get too close to the alter egos when they're walking towards you, there is a high possibility that the game will transition you into a grab animation, because their grab animation is pretty fast when you touch them. And I'm having to group the alter egos together so I can freeze them. I always use the freeze bolt on this section so I can just kill them. I mean, I could have used the shock bolts as well. The shock bolts are definitely a safe alternative to make sure that the alter egos and the traumas aren't following you, and to make sure that the traumas don't do any kind of attack animation that might screw you over. But this is just what happens most of the time. Whenever I'm in this part of the area, the traumas have a very hard time trying to catch me, and it's almost like they're having difficulty taking into account the fact that there's a wall in the way. And as you'll notice with this trauma right here, he could easily path around the corner right now, but he's choosing to walk into the wall, and that's what's keeping me alive right now. And I know that because he has a tank control based movement, he's not going to respond to me that quickly if I decide to take a very sharp turn around him. And getting past that alter ego right there, just hug the right hand side. I recommend staying on the left hand side and then looping back to the right to make sure that he's not too close to you. But I still managed to get past him either way. But that is the end of that really tough section, and something I forgot to mention, you have to make sure you restart the checkpoint upon first entering that room, so that the traumas will respawn from the exact same positions, and it'll be very easy when it comes to predicting when you're supposed to move. And we're now about to make our way over to the Quell boss fight, and the Quell is a boss that so many people overrate too much. Everybody considers this guy to be a bullet spongy enemy and a really difficult boss. The bullet spongy aspect I can understand because you have the Magnum, and the Magnum for the most part is kind of useless for most of this game. The only other time I ever use the Magnum aside from the Quell boss fight is on chapter 11 when I have to kill the first SWAT guy that appears because he can be annoying. Every other section after that, I just use different weapons. There's no incentive to use the Magnum on this game, and it's for a good reason. Because of the fact that there isn't really an incentive to use the Magnum, you're going to be able to save up on a lot of Magnum ammo for this particular boss fight, and that perfectly justifies why this boss is kind of a bullet spongy enemy. And here is the Quell right now, and you're going to notice a continuity error here. For some reason during this little vignette moment, Sebastian has an M1911, so it's definitely clear that the assets for the M1911 were in this game at the time, but they just weren't utilized for the main game. For the DLCs, the M1911 was actually utilized. But here's the Quell, immediately fire a shock bolt, and then while he is stunned, what you have to do is shoot him twice, wait for him to recover, and then lay into him with the rest of your Magnum shots. And every time you do this, he will always spawn parasites from his mouth, so fire the shotgun at them, and then lay into him a little bit more before he runs away. Now, he's going to be in a random spot, and I think you can control the spot a little bit, because he's never going to be in the spot that's close to you. Because I was standing right there, it seems to prompt him to go to this corner every single time. And he will always spawn the parasites when you're far away from him. The moment you get close to where he is, he will not spawn the parasites. And I'm about to get trolled in a moment. So, it's because I'm responding to him very early, I take the time to fire 3 shots at him before he recovers. But then I get screwed by the random variable. Look at that. Look back at the video just then. Look at that. Just slow that down. There is no way I missed him. The reticle was perfectly on him, but the random variable screwed me. So now I'm going to have to devote additional time to taking this guy out. And I'm going to use an explosive bolt and a shock bolt. The reason why I use the shock bolt is because when he's near death, he tends to be a little bit faster with his attack animations. And I was afraid of the possibility that he would be able to get out of my explosive bolt. But I stop him, and he's dead. And that was a simple boss fight that so many people overcomplicate for no reason. That right there is a Shinji Mikami boss. This is a boss fight that is perfectly suitable for survival horror, because saving your resources led to good results. And the good results in this case were me absolutely decimating this boss in under a minute. Or rather, I would have been able to kill this guy in under a minute if I had not been screwed by the random variable. But still though, this is still a really fun boss fight. And by the way, if you're low on pistol and shotgun ammo, keep the boss alive and get him to spawn the parasites. Every single time you kill a parasite, they will always drop ammunition. You can amass so much ammunition by just killing those parasites alone. And if you're not caring about the no upgrade aspect whatsoever, and you're upgrading your weapons, you are going to amass a lot of ammunition for your weapons, and Chapter 15 will be an absolute joke. It's already a joke right now. Like, the ammunition that I have right now is perfectly suitable for Chapter 15. Oh, by the way, something I forgot to mention, if you place the fuse boxes exactly like how I place them in the video, where you place all 3 of them in one go, you will get a trophy. If you decide to place the first 2 inside, and then you run off to get the 3rd one, you won't get the trophy. So you gotta bear that in mind when you're trying to get that particular trophy. So now I'm just going to skip to the fight involving the 3 Haunted that have the wires inside of their head. It's a repeat of what you did before in Chapter 5, and it's no different in difficulty. And remember to craft a flashbolt before that sequence. The shotgun and the flashbolts really help for those sequences, because the fact that you take damage during the animation of pulling out the cord is pretty dumb. And the flashbolts really help in making sure that the enemies don't get up too quickly. And the reason why you want to make a flashbolt is because when the enemies are on the ground and you fire the flashbolt at them, it resets the time they're spent lying on the ground. So I fire the shotgun to knock them all over, and then I fire the flashbolt so that they don't immediately get up off the ground. You're going to be able to pull the plug on 2 of the Haunted, and then for the 3rd guy you have to knock him over once again and then pull his cord out. And that will be the end of Chapter 14. Stay tuned for the final chapter. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.